Hey, Math 10, we're going to start talking now about some of the things you're going to have to do in this unit, and we'll take a look at the first set of questions, questions 1, 2, and 3. So these questions are going to involve using the Cartesian coordinate system. This is your famous sort of x-axis and y-axis. We have the x-axis being the vertical axis here, and the y-axis being the... Oh, wait, sorry, I said that wrong. Terrible faux pas. Let me try again. The x-axis is the horizontal axis, and the y-axis is the vertical axis. Wow, they almost had to revoke my teacher license for that that mistake. So that's going to be a relationship that we're going to be exploring. There's going to be all sorts of interesting relationships between x and y that we'll see. I just wanted to talk about where this comes from. This is called the Cartesian coordinate system, and it's named after this fellow over here, René Descartes. He is a French philosopher and mathematician from hundreds of years ago. He invented the whole Cartesian coordinate system, and he invented it during, I think it was the Hundred Years' War. He was a soldier, I believe an officer during this famous war that was happening in Europe, and he was thinking a lot about maps and understanding terrain and that kind of stuff. And he started coming up with this Cartesian coordinate system as a way to describe space, but also to describe all sorts of relationships. So if we go back to our coordinates system here, you might recognize this from like a game like Battleship or something, right? Where you can kind of specify a location in this grid by using an X and a Y number. So it can definitely describe space, but that's just the beginning of the coordinate system. It actually can describe all sorts of things as well. It can illustrate relationships between numbers. That's the big deal that we need to get to understand. It can show in an image the relationships between two numbers. We're going to call those numbers sort of X and Y, but those numbers could be, hours worked and your money on your paycheck kind of thing. It could be infection rates and number of infections. It could be all sorts of different kind of pieces of information. We're going to talk X and Y. Before we leave René Descartes, though, I just wanted to also mention, he invented this Cartesian coordinate system to turn kind of geometry into algebra in a way, and also to describe space and other useful things. He's also responsible for the idea that the Matrix movies are based on. The Matrix, where the person's trapped in this computer simulation. He actually posited this idea, and he might not be the original person. He's the first person I know of, but he came up with this interesting idea of he said, what if all of reality was an illusion created by the devil? And how would you know if it was an illusion or not? This was the kind of thing that René Descartes sort of mused about and wondered about. As a philosopher, that's kind of, typical kind of philosopher type of thing to do, is kind of think about these ideas. He really wondered what was real and what was not real. So he came up with one thing that he thought must be true, even if everything was an illusion around you, or if you're trapped in a computer simulation, you could prove that you are real because you're having thoughts, you're wondering the question, which proves you exist. And it comes this famous saying, he wrote it in Latin, cognito ergo sum. It's this famous saying, cognito ergo sum. I'm doing too much jumping around. It means I think, therefore I am. And this is a famous saying that he came up with as well. And hey, it spawned the Matrix movies, right? So that's pretty good. So let's go back to the Cartesian coordinate system. I just wanted to mention before we get going, there's a concept called quadrants. So you can see that this X and Y axis produces this space here to graph things on. So there's different quadrants that are going to be named, and they're always going to be named these different names, right? So maybe I can zoom in on this a little bit and scroll over. That's about as good as I can do there, I think. Thanks for your patience with me doing this. So we have quadrant 1. In quadrant 1, both X and Y are positive. There can be all sorts of different numbers, but if a particular point is in this quadrant, then you can say for certain that the x and y values must be positive for it to fall into this quadrant. In quadrant 2, the x number, x value, is going to be negative, and the y value will be positive. In quadrant 3, and it's kind of weird, it goes around counterclockwise, but you'll just get used to it. That's just the way it is. In quadrant 3, both x and y are negative, and in quadrant 4, this time it's the y that's negative and the x is positive. So a good way to remember it is sort of these ones on the right, both quadrant 1 and 4, x is always positive. That didn't work too good, did it? Let me try again. Let me scroll this down. On the right-hand side, you can always assume x is positive. And then on the left-hand side, you can always assume that x is negative. So that's for both for all 4 quadrants. On the up and down, you can always assume that if it's on the top, the quadrant 1 and 2, then it's y that's positive. And if it's on the bottom, so quadrant 3 and 4, you can say that y is negative. And between sort of those kind of truths that you can remember, those definitions, you'll be able to sort of know when things are positive and negative. That's going to take us to the first question. If I jump ahead to question 1, that's how you're going to answer the first question. It says, without plotting, state in which quadrant the point can be found. So it says here, our x value is 4, and this is x. So they always go in order, right? So it's alphabetical order. So the first one is x coordinate, sorry. And the second one is y. So if we have a positive x and a negative y, which quadrant is that going to be? And the idea is to do it without plotting. There's like no graphing police that are going to come and arrest you if you go and check to see. But it's probably a good idea to think of it and try to do it without plotting if you can. But you can always check your answer. The answer is going to be, if it's a positive x, that means it's going to have to be on the right-hand side. So either it's got to be quadrant 1 or 4. And if it's negative, it's going to be on the bottom. So that means bottom right, so that means quadrant 4. So quadrant 4 is going to be the answer for this one. And again, if you get stuck, you can just go to any plane. You can go down here, plot it out, and see what quadrant it's in. I think probably the hardest thing to do for this question is just remember what are the names of the quadrants. So you might want to invest some time in just looking over, which quadrant is named what, and just sort of remember that. I would say memorize, and it's probably not the wrong word to use. You do have to know sort of the names of the quadrants and which ones are which. So that'll give you some practice on that. So that's question number 1. Question number 2, if I jump back to question 2, we're going to be talking about plotting the points. That basically means just draw and label the points on this graph. So for example, I'll zoom in here a little bit. Maybe, there we go. Trying my best. So we have, for example, -3, 1. So remember, the first coordinate is x and the second one is y. So x is -3 and y is 1. So what I do is I'll first plot my x coordinate. I'll just draw this. You don't necessarily need to draw the lines as you do this, but I'll do it just to make sure I'm clear about what's happening. So I'm going to find x and -3, right? So here's the x-axis, and right here is where -3 is. And then the y coordinate is +1, so that's where +1 is, right here. And then I just sort of like see where they meet, just like I'm playing Battleship. By the way, I'm using Battleship as an example because my kids got Battleship for Christmas, so we played a lot of Battleship over the break. And my kids cheat. I'm like, damn, you guys like gotta not cheat. This is no good. They're like, they don't really mean to cheat. They're just jumping around while they play. They're like, I've never seen someone play Battleship so athletically. It could literally be a sport the way they jump around, when they get a hit. And as they jump around, they'll just end up like, accidentally seeing things. But I don't know how accidental it is. Those kids they gotta learn some sportsmanship here. Anyways, so all you do is you connect these things. You kind of go up here and go up here. Just see where they connect. And that's the point right there. That's where point A is. Don't forget to label the point. Put a big letter A there. I'll do B while I'm out of here. So B is -4, -2. So x is -4, y is -2. So that's where the 2 meet is right here. So that's B. I'll let you do the rest of them down to H. They don't take long. It'll be pretty easy. I'll erase my little marks here, and you can sort of erase your marks as you go as well. You can plot it out with lines if you want to, or just eyeball it. Just make sure you label them. It's really important to label your points. If you just put a bunch of points out there, I don't know which one is A and B and C and so on, and neither do you, I guess. Actually, maybe you do, but I need to know exactly which ones you intended A and B to be on a test, for example. Okay, this is question 3 now. Question 3 is all about we have labeled points. We have to find their coordinates and write them as an ordered pair. I should probably mention this term, ordered pair. So what ordered pairs are like these things here. They're a set of an x and a y. So x, y, right? So for A, you're just going to look at point A. A is right here. It's in the very center. And you're just going to write down the x and y coordinate of that point. So that's going to be at 0, 0. A is 0, comma 0. Which kind of looks like a face, a little owl or something. For B, B is this one up here. So I'm just going to kind of look over at what is the y coordinate. That's going to be 5, so that's the second number. And the x coordinate, it's going to be 4, so it's 4, comma 5. The x always goes first, the y always goes second. So go ahead and give those a try. Try all of them, it won't take you long. And check the answers in the back of the book. Make sure you did them correctly. These are great questions to get you started on this stuff. They won't take you too much time, and if they are taking you a lot of time, that means you probably aren't quite understanding what's happening. So come into a flex time or rewatch the video, or go check out another video on YouTube about this type of thing. So I'm going to stop the video here, go and do question 1, 2, and 3, and come back for the next set of questions for the next video. Hey, thanks so much, Math 10. I'm having a lot of fun. I hope you are too. Bye-bye.